So, welcome to New Video Frontiers, Stefan.
Thank you.
How's it
Well,
going? How are you?
oh, very well. Thank you for having me today, Vincent.
Yeah.
Very glad to be here with you.
So, firstly, could you just explain a little bit about what RTL Ad Connect is? I mean, I think most people in our audience will be aware of RTL being Europe's largest broadcaster, but could you just explain a little bit more about what RTL Ad Connect do?
Yes, we are the international ad sales house of the group, of RTL Group. We have operations in more than 15 countries across Europe, but also in the US or in Asia. And basically, we help international clients to do pan-European campaigns in TV, in radio, and in digital.
So it's been a difficult pandemic, I think that's fair to say, for the European broadcasters. We saw huge spikes in viewing as we're all locked in our houses. But
Yeah.
then, in tandem with that, we also saw advertisers panicking and pausing spend or pulling back creatives, which they felt weren't appropriate at the time. Um, I'd be interested in you as somebody who works in different European TV markets. What did you see across Europe, and was the same pattern playing out that I just described?
Yeah, well, it was a hell of a year. I unfortunately think that it's not completely over, unfortunately, and the pandemic is here to stay a few more months. If I look at the latest news, yeah, it's been a hell of a year where we have seen a huge impact from an advertising perspective and from a revenue perspective, where we saw a lot of our clients having severe difficulties or stopping in some sectors, like obvious sectors like travel industry, completely going, with zero investment from, I would say, April onwards until mid of summer, and still very complicated to come back. Some other sectors like the luxury goods, especially linked to the travel retail, etc., have been also very, very hit very much. On the other side, from a media perspective, yes, we have seen a huge impact of the pandemic on the daily viewing times. Basically, the viewing time has skyrocketed across the world, I would say. A few statistics: plus 30 minutes daily viewing in the US, where the US is a huge, increasingly viewing, non-linear type of content. In Europe, in the top five markets, we have experienced plus 81 minutes of daily viewing in the middle of the pandemic, around March, April of this year, with very different, I would say, patterns across Europe. For instance, in Italy was more than 2 hours on top of the daily viewings, which is incredibly huge. In France, it was about an hour and 25 minutes. And in the UK was just below an hour additional daily viewing. And this was around mid-March to mid-April. What was interesting as well is it was on across all target groups, including the youngsters, including the young people. We have experienced, for example, in the UK, a plus 36% of increase in the daily viewing among youngsters. And why? It's simply because I think the TV or linear TV or the telly, as you say in Britain, was back into a reliable piece of information, piece of news, a reliable way of entertaining ourselves. Getting out of the pandemic on a daily basis to be entertained, but also from a news perspective, as I said, it's reliable news, it's premium content, it's no fake news. And I think people really, really massively came back to TV. So it's an extreme resilience of TV during the pandemic. Now, after the pandemic, what we see is basically the daily viewing audience is still very high. It's still very high over summer in June, July, and this trend that we've seen on young target groups is still very here. At least until the end of summer, where we have the latest statistics.
So I know RTL AdConnect you've been sort of chipping away at the US market, trying to sort of capture US advertiser money to sort of bring to Europe.
Yeah.
I'm interested in what your experience has been there as going there as a US company or sorry, going as a European company. And do you feel like we should be seeing more European companies making inroads into the US?
Well, first of all, I think the US or going abroad is part of a core strategy. We're very European from from a history perspective, from a core business perspective, of course. But we've seen very clearly over the past few years that basically the world was becoming a little village, and basically brands were becoming more and more global with the decision-making process being a bit more complex than it used to be when you used to have a local media director or local CMO. Now it's a regional or pan-regional, and sometimes it's very centralized. So we see all kinds of advertisers and ways of taking decision for a global brands. So basically, the world has becoming a little bit of a playing field, and we had to fish where the fish are, and we decided a few years ago to expand our strategy. The US was one of the first destination. I will talk about Asia in a couple of minutes, but yes. So Europe, from a European company going in the US, first of all, it's not easy. That's really clear. It's not a walk in the park, as you say. You need to have a very clear understanding what is the market. You also need to have a clear understanding that from an American perspective, Europe is far away, and Europe is not the United States of Europe. There's a lot of discrepancies in Europe that you need to explain to the Americans. Having said that, after 2 years of business over there, we have opened our first office in New York and then in LA. I think we have clearly identified the growth areas of business. And I can tell you there are 3 growth areas for us, RTL Ad Connect. First of all, the HQ of many brands that have been already for a long time investing in our group, but they need, and you need to make sure that those companies will continue to invest in the best media and the best broadcasters in Europe. So having a connection with the HQ is clearly a great strategy. The second is about new business and new brands, especially from direct-to-consumer brands, extremely powerful or successful on the US soil, and they want to expand in other areas. So if they want to expand in Europe, we want to be their best partners and to implement a bridge to Europe in a very, very simplified way. And we have discussed with brands like Away or Smile Direct or Slack, or that kind of companies. And the third part is really about the digital business. This has evolved tremendously. You see also central hubs when it comes to digital buy or in-housing trends. And it's good to have those discussions in the US in order to reach the European market or even the global market. And we have put in places different products in order to simplify the access to our inventory. It's the case with the video marketplace, for instance, where in one type of buy, in one connection, you can basically run your campaign across Europe out of the US, for example.
Yeah. So as an industry, we're slowly but surely inching our way towards cross-screen measurement, or so I'm told. What do you think the impact of this is going to be, as particularly from an advertiser's perspective, as they're able to compare, their TV and digital channels? What do you think the net impact will be when we sort of get that accurate cross-screen measurement?
Well, I think for all of us, across the industry, I think cross measurement capabilities is super key. We need to be able to monitor each and every media we are putting on the table or we are offering to our advertisers when it comes to TV, linear, non-linear, on demand, on mobile, on PC or whatever. So we need to be able to measure all cross screens and to be able to measure somehow the incremental reach and the impact on the reach and frequency, of course, of your media campaigns. There are different opportunities at the moment or initiatives. One, strongly pushed by the WFA, called the Origins project, and basically trying to put together the broadcasters and the platforms in order to find I would say, a common denominator in cross-screen measurements. The issue I would say for us as broadcasters is we want to make sure that we are comparing what is comparable. We are comparing, premium content with premium content. We are comparing the same level of completion rate, the same, amount of seconds. What is a completion on YouTube or what is a completion on TV is really different. So we need to make sure we're comparing the same stuff. We compare with the sound on, because in TV it's sound on, it's full screen, etc. And we also want to use, of course, our local measurement systems like BARB in the UK, but also Médiamétrie in France. So we want to make sure that we are comparing things and not just taking the platform or what they wish for granted. So next to the Origin project, there is the C-Flight, which is also another initiative coming out of the US from NBC, and the C-Flight is being discussed at the moment in some countries, including the UK. I think ITV has been very vocal about it. That allows definitely advertisers to have a cross-screen measurement. Your campaign on ITV, on ITV Hub, on mobile, on OTT. We will take into account the whole ecosystem in order to really have the number of impressions and the context that your campaign has had across those different devices. So very important for us, of course, to bring something reliable and strong on the market.
So looking at younger audiences, younger audiences are something that I think, there's a perceived challenge for broadcasters, and I think that perception that it has been challenging for broadcasters isn't entirely untrue. However, I also think that sometimes younger audiences, people sort of imagine that it's a zero-sum game where they only spend time on social media and they don't do anything else, which is obviously not true either. But to what extent are they engaging with VOD services or BVOD services if we're talking about broadcasters specific?
Sure. So first of all, the perception is not a reality, and even in the linear viewing time, what I can tell you is, according, of course, to different markets, but you still have an hour and a half, an hour and 50 minutes, or 2 hours and 50 minutes of daily consumption of linear TV, according to the market, among the 15 to 34 years old. So you can still reach a very high amount, a very high number of 18-34 using linear TV. Having said that, we have seen that, of course, youngsters are using more and more linear on-demand, what we call BVOD or broadcast VOD services. For example, in the UK, during the pandemic, plus 48% of usage of video on demand in the UK for youngsters aged below 16 years old. It's plus 29% in Holland, for example. So what we saw is our owned and operated catch-up VOD platforms have again skyrocketed across the board in UK, so ITV Hub, in France, Sisplay, in Germany, TV Now, etc. And this is a way as well to connect our consumers, even the youngest one, thanks to a good combination of linear and on-demand campaigns.
We're seeing moves across Europe towards, addressable TV advertising. I think, it's fairly advanced in the UK, and the rest of Europe is making moves. I think it's fair to say that moves are underway. Let's say that. But are you concerned that this could possibly affect broadcast TV's positioning as a mass reach medium, or do these opportunities for incremental spend from other advertisers outweigh those concerns? I mean, one of the things I'm hearing, and I've been speaking to planners lately, and one of the things they talk about TV, they just say it's simple, it's straightforward. We buy it, we know what it does, we know how it's measured, the client understands it, it's simple, and there's a value in that simplicity. But as this moves towards addressability, we're moving almost into the digital like domain. Do you think the opportunities outweigh the risks of overcomplicating things?
Well, I'm not sure we're overcomplicating things, to be honest. I think we are following the trend, and the trend is definitely today to use the mass reach capabilities of TV, but also use the targeting capabilities of what digital can bring. And I think in the future, even linear TV will be, in the next future, will it be in 3 or 5 years or 10 years? That I don't know. That's the future of TV, but I really have the feeling that even linear TV will be ad served to some extent in order to make it available to more and more screens on CTV and OTT, on mobile, etc., even in linear. But then you will use the media according to your KPIs as a brand. You need to have a high reach in a very limited period of time. You will use linear TV for what it is. Well, branding very quickly. You're going to reach a high level of connect with a high level of population. On the other side, if we can combine this with addressability or addressable capabilities, I think that's the growl that we are looking for, because of course some of our clients want to reduce the waste, but also some of our future clients cannot be on TV today due to high level of entry in terms of costs, or high level versus other media, because they cannot reach a very, very small segment. When I think about luxury automotive, for example, well, everyone is watching TV, but of course you only want to talk to the one who will be able to buy this car of €100,000, for example, for luxury car. So this will allow us to increase the number of sectors that TV as a total video can reach. What we see so far with addressable is the difficulty or the complexity again in Europe is the different numbers or technologies that are available in the different countries. For instance, if you take UK, of course you have AdSmart, very strong within Sky, but if you look in the other market, it's not that strong. Some other technologies are taking up. We talk about cable or IPTV when it comes to France or to Benelux, and if we go now to the German side of things and Austria, Italy, Spain, we're talking about HbbTV technology, which is one of our technology within the RTL group that we have decided to push, thanks to SmartClip or ad tech company. And today, if I look at HbbTV, for instance, we can reach already 29 million uniques on a daily basis. So we have the feeling that addressable TV is only starting. It's only the beginning. When it comes to Europe, it will be a mix of different technologies according to the local, I would say, discrepancies and infrastructure. But I really believe from a marketing perspective that it will combine the very best of TV, meaning reach, with the digital capabilities. And I think it will also make sure that we are providing a better advertising experience to the users. Because of course, if you are broadcasting in a seamless way, adverts that are really focused on your interest, on what you like, etc., I really believe that you will have a better experience with your media and with your broadcaster in the future.
One of the common complaints I hear from broadcasters is that there's a sense that they're not on a level playing field with the tech companies, and there's a few different fronts. I suppose The first would probably be tax. You know that often there's questionable amounts of tax being paid by the large tech players. The second would be content, and that you know they're often using user-generated content that they're monetizing. And the other thing would be regulation, that they feel that there's you know an unfair, uh, yeah, there isn't a level playing field. When it comes to regulations, I think you know, and governments taking action, we're seeing big moves both in the US and the EU toward you know to possibly even break the companies up. But certainly there seems to be appetite to rein them in at the very least. What's your feeling on you know these moves to control big tech, and do you think that they stand much chance of success?
Well, personally, I'm from a from an industry perspective, I'm not a big fan of over controlling things, but on the other side, I'm a big fan of fair treatment. And I have the feeling indeed that there's not a fair treatment, hasn't been a fair treatment over the past years between the platforms and the publishers. If you look at a broadcaster like ITV or RTL or M6 in France, we are, as broadcasters, as publishers, accountable for what do we distribute, what we put on our channels, according to the public. If you are placing something violent or extremely disruptive in prime time, I can tell you the very next morning it will be the first page in the newspaper, in the websites, etc. It will be across everywhere, saying that, oh, what's going on with the broadcast, etc. This thing does not happen on the platforms. You can find so many, violent stuff, unappropriated type of content on the platform, and everyone seems to think this is, oh, that's normal because it's on the platform and I cannot control anything. I think there are ways to control, and we can oblige as well those companies who do not invest so much, by the way, in content, to take actions and to be accountable for that. So I think it's fair treatment. And one of the big advantages of the platforms is they are scalable. They have one platform and basically they roll it out everywhere in the world, and that's super easy to do. On the contrary, we as publishers, we are investing very, very locally. We create local content, local heroes, premium content. We invest a lot of our money in order to do that and in order to generate audience in the future. I think the future will be, because we see now that platforms are investing in content, or some of them like Netflix, etc., heavily in content and disrupting a little bit the industry. I think the next big thing will be about broadcasters or legacy publisher investing more in platforms as well, to make it more simple to buy and to invest our content in the future. So I think that will be the next shift in the coming future, where we will invest more into platforms in order to facilitate, simplify the access to our inventory.
Stefan, that was fantastic as always. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Vincent. Thank you for having me today.